What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 545 of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast, Hot Tags of the Week. You know how this goes. We're going to run down the things that happened this week that we feel like talking about in the world of pro wrestling. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango. Joining me, as always, are Robert DeFelice.
Hello, everyone.
And Callum Wiggins.
I could swear it was episode 455.
Yeah, according to the first take of me trying to do this, it's episode 4 of the Hot Tags. You know, we're just getting into the swing of things. We don't really know what we're doing. Yeah. It's kind of like an issue of a comic book where they're like, how many Batman number 1s are there out there in the world? Now, we're well into this. We got a lot of hot tags to talk about and some interesting things happening this week. Last week, if I'm remembering correctly, we were like, man, we're scrounging for topics. We don't have anything. This week we have quite a bit, so that's going to be interesting to talk about. And as we run down our opinions here, we want to know what you guys have to say as well. So whatever you're thinking, whether you agree or you disagree with us, drop it in the comments below and keep the discussion going. While you're there, do all the things that you normally do to show your support for our YouTube channel. You got the thanks button, you got the like button, you got the subscribe button, you got that little join button as well. It's the same thing as the Patreon. Go to patreon.com/smarkoutmoment if you're interested in the Patreon stuff, or click that join button and you're going to get access to the Darkcasts, and you're going to have the option to get to the Pick a Poison tier and request things. Or if you just have an extra spare buck a month, a buck goes a long way. Oddly enough, can't buy one thing at the dollar store with it, but you could still spend almost that entire thing for that. So we are going to just dive right into some of these things here. This is going to be one of our main topics, but I figured we should start off with this one. Roman Reigns. He, according to some of these reports, which I haven't seen anything that 100% officially says this is guaranteed what's going to happen, but it seems like there's just tons of chatter around it. Seems like Roman Reigns could potentially just be like, yeah, I'm not going to be around for months. And that they are going to basically put the 2 world titles on hold up until SummerSlam and Clash at the Castle. So that means potentially no Roman Reigns stories, or at least nothing worthwhile, for Hell in a Cell and Money in the Bank, all these episodes of Raw and SmackDown, that Drew McIntyre just kind of has nothing to do for this time frame, and that they wasted WrestleMania Backlash because they could have just done the title match there. And we don't have a world champion. Do you guys buy this, or do you think that this is something that's thrown out there in the wrong context, and it turns out that it's actually just he's taking live events off and that's it?
Let's start with what we know here, because what we know is that in the month of July and the month of August, he's not announced for any TV or live events except for SummerSlam and
Clash at the Castle.
Clash at the Castle, which Clash at the Castle is in the very beginning of September. Now, we know he's not doing Hell in a Cell. They took him off the poster. They're not advertising him for Hell in a Cell. And I believe in the Observer today, they reported that the first title defense will be at Money in the Bank. So he very well could do Money in the Bank, because Money in the Bank is at the very beginning of July. So perhaps it's just he's going to miss Hell in a Cell, do Money in the Bank, do SummerSlam, do Clash at the Castle, and then we'll see what the announcements are. I know how I feel about this as a whole, but Callum, how do you feel about just what we know about Roman Reigns missing the TV and the live events for the next few months?
I don't think it's entirely unexpected or surprising. Again, we don't know what the whole reasons behind it is, but I mean, there are a multitude of things that it could be if this does prove to be accurate. I mean, he's talking about he's talking about, and other people were talking about him going into Hollywood, and he probably does have a burgeoning acting career starting, so that could be a reason behind it. He's also, we know about his health problems in the past, so it may be just a extended rest period. He has been working pretty non-stop for the last 2+ years, so maybe this is just an extended break. the big issue is obviously the fact that he is not only one world champion, he's both world champions. And that could be a bit of a sticking point unless they decide to take the titles off of him and then bring him and then put them back on him when he's back in a more quote unquote full-time capacity. But realistically, they could still run with this. I mean, they had Brock Lesnar as one of their champions like all those years ago, and he was only appearing on certain pay-per-view events and then building up a couple of TVs leading up to that as well. I just think that it's a different situation when he's holding both of your world titles that he only recently unified just about a month or so ago.
Like, I hated the Brock Lesnar thing as it was, but at least they had another champion. Now you put both titles on the guy and he ends up fucking off for a while. I mean, if he's injured, that's one thing. But then if he's injured, you can't get around that, and it's bad luck. But then you still shouldn't have put both your titles on somebody who could have had that kind of happen. That's what you get when the phrase is usually don't put all your eggs in one basket. When you do that and then you drop the basket, you're fucked. And I can't fathom this idea that WWE has these days where they're like, it literally doesn't matter anything that we do for any show because we just don't care. Like, I'm not going to beat the point down again, but WrestleMania Backlash was stupid. It was a waste of time. We spent weeks leading up to a show that didn't fucking matter. And if they're like, yeah, well, you know what? You sat through that, but we're going to hit you with a bunch of good stuff afterward. I would still be of the argument of you shouldn't have to go through a bad thing to get rewarded. You should just have good things. And, sometimes things happen, whatever, but you can't also then go, yeah, you went through those things, but hey, you got to sit through more. No. Like, I feel so jaded as a fan these days where I'm like, I don't want to watch this stuff if they don't want to put it out. They just want people to have watched it. They don't want people to actually enjoy it, it seems.
So I fucking hate this. Like, I do, and it's for me, I'm seeing a lot of complacency in the response to this. Like,
the apologists are ridiculous. Oh, it was bound to happen, and he's holding 2 titles, and that's a lot for him, so he should take time off. Fuck you, take one of the titles off of him.
And Callum did say he's not surprised by this, and it's to be expected. But the issue here becomes, this isn't Brock Lesnar. This isn't even The Rock. When The Rock went to do, I think it was Scorpion King, they were smart enough to take the fucking, he was going to be a number 1 contender, and they said, no, you're not going to be around, so you're not number 1 contender. Like, the idea that Roman Reigns is just finally getting to be the guy, and they're literally going, great, you're the guy, next step. God, at least we had 10 years with Cena to go, okay, can you give us anything else, please? Thank you. With Roman, it's like, you spent so much of your time trying to beat Lesnar. Then you finally beat Lesnar, and then you had to go away because of leukemia. And then when you came back from that, you had a lackluster year before disappearing because of COVID. And then finally having a good run, and now you're leaving after finally getting to that level.
They just keep circling back to the same thing and then disappearing. And I don't know. I mean, it's frustrating as all hell.
It's really frustrating for me as a fan. And I'm not saying that I didn't expect Roman Reigns to be the next big crossover star. I think even more than him, you're going to have to worry about that Sasha Banks crossover one day, because I'm sure she's got one foot out the door too. But Roman is on top of the whole company right now. Use him to make the shows that you have matter, so you don't need names like Brock and Cena who aren't going to be there, and this one and that one. It just feels so blah to me.
Do you guys think that they are in this philosophy right now where they're like, I mean, we saw for some reason Money in the Bank is being advertised as you can main event WrestleMania, which they still haven't clarified yet. But I'm of the opinion that it's the same rules as always, that somebody just decided that that would be a more marketable phrasing for it, because they are very much like WrestleMania is the only thing that matters. And I think to a lesser extent,
not gonna lie, fair to go that route, because WrestleMania should be your main focus.
I mean, it's kind of like the Super Bowl is the most important football game of the year. Ipso facto, there's no discussion whatsoever. It is the end. WrestleMania is the biggest wrestling show of the year. Nothing comes close. Number 2, arguably, is the Royal Rumble. SummerSlam, sometimes, kind of all depends on the card. But it does kind of come off to me a little bit like maybe this is a Nick Khan philosophy, because it seems like that's just been changing a little bit since he came on board, and it's not so much a WWE thing, although WWE's a little bit guilty of it from these past bunch of years too, that maybe they're going back to this Big Four kind of idea, but they're applying it less so to quote unquote the Big Four, and more so, if it's in a stadium, we will care about at least one match. If it's not in a stadium, we do not care. It is just a show. We're on Peacock. We're not getting pay-per-view buys, so we don't need to build it in any fashion whatsoever. Like, literally, we're not even looking at this as a special event anymore. We're just looking at it as another episode of Raw. And if we have a world champion on these stadium shows that we need to sell out those big shows, we're good. Everything else, it doesn't fucking matter. So Money in the Bank is like, oh, well, the Money in the Bank gimmick sells it. We could have Money in the Bank's card exist with Akira Tozawa against Cedric Alexander and Nikki ASH against Dana Brooke in a run around the ring and tag each other, Duck Duck Goose style match, whatever. But if we have that one Money in the Bank match and we have, you know, AJ Styles is in that, and we go, you care about him, right? Then we're good. Roman only needs to pop up at SummerSlam, Clash at the Castle, and the only reason Clash at the Castle he needs to is because it's a big, like, hey, you know, we went over there, and we'll talk about that for the next bunch of media calls, and go, remember when we went over to the UK and we packed that stadium, talking point. We have him for SummerSlam, we have him for Clash at the Castle, and then we have him at Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, and that's all that matters. And
on the surface, I'm fine with that, except you're booking 7 hours of live programming a week, not counting weeks of pay-per-views. It's not like the Hogan era where it was like, okay, so you're not going to see Hogan on Saturday morning having a 4-minute match. You know, it's, wow, there's all these long shows that we're supposed to treat like they're WrestleMania that have no hook. And I feel weird about it.
Well, Hook is on AEW.
You beat me to it. I was trying to formulate a joke about. We know that Hook.
Tony to say that, but
I was trying to think about. I was like, well, we know that Hook's going to at least be on Double or Nothing. You know? But yeah, it just seems like this is one of those things where, you know, they beat you over the head with that, like, we don't care, so you shouldn't either thing, and it's hard to not just go, all right, then I'll turn the channel.
no,
Yeah,
because
why? Again, I just feel like we're just going around in circles every time we talk about this sort of stuff. They literally don't care. They put out content every single week, and the TV companies pay billions of dollars for it. That's all that matters. That's all that motivates them. And frankly, if you're being paid $1 billion to run 2 TV shows for the course of the course of 5 years, then yeah, why the fuck would you bother caring about anything else?
Personal pride.
We know
not even personal pride.
Tony, you have personal pride. We would all, if we had that amount of money, we'd want to put on like a really great wrestling show every single time. They don't, And they proved it they don't. So why are we just beating ourselves in the heads like, why don't they care? Why do they care? Is it got something to do with the billions of dollars they're earning every single year? Maybe it has got something to do with that.
No, I think they have personal pride. The issue is when it's time for them to show their personal pride, they need to dig back and get Austin to wrestle a match. I just want to know, okay, fine, Roman is leaving. Who the hell is going to anchor these shows? Because if it was going to be Drew, then you shouldn't have had Drew McIntyre from SummerSlam to Mania working names like Jinder and Happy Corbin. You should have had him right up near the top of the card. I'm just asking, why aren't we building a contingency plan?
And for that matter, if that is going to be something you're pitching to the audience as okay, which, fully established, it's not okay, but whatever, moving on. If you're trying to say it's fine if we don't have either world champion on either show for months at a time, that United States title and that Intercontinental title, they need to get boosted. That needs to be the thing that kind of fills the void. And you're not fucking getting that by having Ricochet fight Shanky. Because nobody fucking cares. I mean, Ricochet is great. And the discussion around Ricochet is perpetually the same discussion that it's been for years, which is fun guy to watch in the ring, can't cut a promo. Why isn't he getting pushed? He should leave the company. It's the same 4 talking points. And now that he's champion, he's doing fuck all with the title. So if you need to have this idea of like, all right, well, we're not going to have the world champion on either show, you boost those up. You take that title off of Ricochet because you're clearly not interested in pushing him if he is only fighting Los Lotharios and Shanky and Jinder. And you put that on Drew McIntyre and you make it seem like that's at least, well, we got this former 2-time world champion is holding it and he's defending the Intercontinental Championship as if it's the biggest fucking deal in the world.
And by the way, they can do that perfectly fine because they've proven it every single time that Brock Lesnar has had to hold the world title where, okay, now Rollins has made the Intercontinental title the most important thing. Okay, Roman's Intercontinental Champion for some reason because it's the most important thing because Brock's gone.
And this is another thing that I'm sure at first you guys are going to go, no, I don't like that, but hear me out. If you don't want Money in the Bank to factor into Roman Reigns whatsoever, like you're just like, look, everybody, pull the curtain. Roman's keeping both of these belts, which I don't think he should, all the way through WrestleMania. We don't want him to have many appearances. We're just skipping another year, essentially. And Money in the Bank is just going to be a complete waste. Do the thing that I've mentioned before, where you say the person who wins this can challenge for any championship that they want. And then make it an important enough story where somebody does want to cash in on the United States title or something like that. It's not the same, but I would rather have that happen and for them to have an excuse than for somebody to win Money in the Bank and for them to either do one of these two options, which is you won that and now you have to wait 9 months for this to matter. And if plans change and we just forget about it, then we tell you to forget about it. Or you won that and we need you to cash in and lose to Roman and have it be completely worthless. I'd rather it be that, because then at least people will care about the Intercontinental Championship, you know?
I just don't see why it just shouldn't be an easy decision, which is Roman's taking time off, he loses the title. That's all they need to do. And they haven't built him up well enough, but you just give it to McIntyre or you just give it to Rhodes and then you just move on. They're the two names that can win the world title, so you just give it to one of them and move on.
At least one of them. Like, just have him be like, okay, I want to fight you for the championship, and he'll be like, no, I've got my wise man saying I don't need to put both my titles on the line. You fought through whatever challenges that we need to, and you've earned your number one contender spot, but you've only earned it for one of these belts. And then you've got one champion, he can carry the other one. It's pretty fucking simple.
Why does... Again, I mean, maybe I'm just being bleak to this. Why does Roman need to have any championship?
I mean, if that's their philosophy, is that he needs to, quote unquote, hold a championship for as long as, like the Universal title where he can have it for like 3 years or whatever, then that's your way around it, is for him to just in storyline be like, I'm only defending one title. But fundamentally, I mean, he's way past the point that
Roman doesn't need to have any title.
He doesn't. No.
The titles need Roman, which is theoretically the way things should be, because we went through years and years and years of them trying to say, hey, Dolph Ziggler was a 2-time world champion. That means it matters. But, I agree. Go ahead.
I mean, could disagree with, like, the titles don't need Roman anymore. Roman is hurting the titles. Because essentially the titles in the current iteration, due to the fact that they built this whole aura around Reigns that nobody can seemingly beat him for the title, it means every single world title match has zero jeopardy involved in it. Because everyone knows that, Reigns is going to win because he's defending the title against The Rock at next year's WrestleMania.
And this is where I get into something I've said on the podcast a lot of, I really liked hot potato situations. Now, did they get too crazy with it at a certain point with Cena and Orton? Yeah, sure. But at least you felt like at any point this show means something because the title can change hands. They've gotten themselves into a weird spot where it's like, well, if the title doesn't change hands at Rumble, SummerSlam, or Mania, then it doesn't matter, which is silly because the idea should be tune into every show because, hey, maybe the title will change hands on Raw because maybe Cody challenges Roman. They've gotten way too into a formula that I think they need to break out of desperately.
Well, that's one of those things that we just are going to have to find out even tonight if they decide to build anything, because we are supposed to get the fallout from WrestleMania Backlash, which was
they're gonna announce the tag title match probably, and that'll be your hook for Hell in a Cell. It's Randy and Riddle against the Usos inside the cage. That'll be your hook. At least that's the way I see it going. And
well, it's either that or it's Styles and Edge are in Hell in a Cell or whatever. But we know that at least in their philosophy, they're like, oh, Hell in a Cell. There's a lot of equity in that name, and we know we're getting at least one cage match, and let's just ignore the fact that the Hell in a Cell matches are dog shit compared to what they used to be. But we can pretend like they are, and people will watch Hell in a Cell because they're going to watch it or they're not, and because maybe they're interested in the Hell in a Cell match. But it's going to be curious to see if they address the fact that there was a completely pointless 6-man tag at WrestleMania Backlash that didn't even establish.
They will. They already said that they will.
Well,
they said Orton and Riddle are going to SmackDown to challenge Usos to a match to unify the belts because they want the damn belts.
No, I mean, as far as the McIntyre situation, because McIntyre comes in and he's like, hey, yeah, I want to fight Roman. And they're like, sure, in a 6-man tag. And then he loses. And then it's like, all right, well, I'm going to go fuck off for a couple months. So what's McIntyre going to do in this edition? Is he going to come out and be like, yeah, I'm mad, but I guess I'll start a temporary 2-month feud with Ridge Holland or something? Like, I mean, I'm curious what they're going to do with there, but
my guess is he's going to beat the shit out of the Usos for 2 months until Roman says, okay, I'll give you a title match.
I am also interested to see if they try to write Roman off. Like maybe McIntyre, quote unquote, injures Roman. And then they do the whole thing of like, well, you know, we haven't seen him in a while since Drew McIntyre attacked him. And then once we come closer to Money in the Bank or whatever Roman does return, he comes back and it's like, you know, okay, well then we're going to fight. But it's not a good scenario we got. Let's switch over to another topic though while we're at it. This one's another one that's going to be in this thumbnail. Let's talk Kota Ibushi. Talking about people not being around in a company anymore. This one seems like it's an indefinite situation. I have not been following this super closely, and not only is that partially because everything needs to be translated, and then it seems like some things are mistranslated and all that, but it's also I am not at all the person to be talking about the inner workings of New Japan Pro Wrestling when I've never watched a full New Japan Pro Wrestling show other than one Wrestle Kingdom. But you guys know far more about this. Now, fill me in on what I am not aware of and what I might be wrong about. This is what I have seen. Kota Ibushi seems to be tweeting a lot of things about mismanagement in New Japan, possible harassment, the idea that he was brought back when he wasn't ready to return from his injury, and that wasn't safe, and overall just like, here's both my middle fingers, the hell with this company kind of thing. Is that true? Am I missing stuff? What's going on? What's deeper? Fill me in.
So I'm going to right off the bat say that while I have followed, every time I've looked at it, I've said I'm very confused by what is going on, because this is a lot of serious stuff, including maybe organized crime. So I'm going to turn it over to Callum and hope that Callum has had a better understanding of what is going on, outside of the fact that it does seem like Kota Ibushi is definitely leaving New Japan Pro Wrestling.
So this is the story that is continually developing, and it is hard to track because there's been so much that Kota has tweeted and it's changed around. Essentially, what it seems to be is it boils down to take one of your phrases and try and apply it in the most correct way possibly. All started with the build up towards Wrestle Kingdom, this year's Wrestle Kingdom, where apparently they were trying to get Ibushi back. Ibushi, who had injured his arm in the G1 Climax final, dislocated his shoulder, and then decided against surgery in order to try and let it heal naturally, even though that would take longer. But he wanted to do that because he didn't want to undergo another surgery on his arm or elbow. And they wanted to bring him back for the G1, at least according to what Ibushi was tweeting, saying that he was completely in no condition to do it, but they tried to put him out, which annoyed him. Then they also tried to bring him back for the New Japan Cup. And apparently there seems to be like some mixed messages around this one, because some part of it saying that Ibushi himself said he wasn't ready and they tried to bring him back to the New Japan Cup. We've also seen other people or other interpretations say that Ibushi wanted to appear in the New Japan Cup and had been booked by Gedo to win the New Japan Cup, but then a doctor or a professional decided that he shouldn't be competing due to this issue, and he was taken off the New Japan Cup, and that annoyed him. It's one of the other essentially, and they're the complete opposite end of the spectrum. So that's where all this misinterpretation could possibly get into. But a lot of this is revolving around Ibushi's relationship and his text messages with a guy called Kikuchi. And this is one of the big, like, massive parts of it, because I was listening to the Super J Cast, which is a very good resource for the inner workings of New Japan Pro Wrestling. They're the people that originally broke the story about Forbidden Door prior to the announcement on AEW. So I definitely would check out their little discussion about it on their most recent podcast, because they spend about half an hour talking about it, and we'll be able to go into a lot more detail than my recap of essentially what they're saying. But this Kikuchi character is essentially a major booking figure in New Japan, which is an eye-opening thing for a lot of people who just casually follow New Japan, or even people that follow it quite closely, who just assume that Gedo, who's one of their, like, who is like a more of a figurehead and is a character on TV, he's a current wrestler still, but he's more well known back from the 90s and early 2000s as a junior heavyweight wrestler. He now is mainly Jay White's manager on the actual shows, but everyone assumed that he is the head booker of New Japan, and he's kind of like the guy who every show, the things that you actually see on screen, a lot of that is his making. But apparently this Kikuchi character is like the long-term booker. So saying like, okay, by this Wrestle Kingdom, I want these people to be champions and all that stuff. And that's blown the whole thing open a little bit. That's part of the reason why fans have gotten so shocked about it, because even beyond just the stuff that Ibushi is claiming about sexual harassment, extramarital affairs, a potential Yakuza involvement.
That's wild.
Other stuff. Beyond all that, a lot of the fans are mainly in Japan are more shocked about the breaking of kayfabe more than anything else. Just like talking about Gedo as the booker, or having a position of power, and this Kikuchi character and all this other stuff. It's like a lot of people are just shocked about the fact that he's just putting all this stuff out in the open, where in Japan, even though people obviously know that wrestling's quote unquote not on the level, you just don't talk about this stuff as openly.
I might understand that he's, from the wrestlers, kind of being a little side-eyed, like, hey, you don't do this.
Oh, the wrestlers are treating him as again, I haven't followed all of their Twitter accounts, but there seems to be a general consensus that Ibushi is behaving very unprofessionally in this in this matter. Ibushi thinks that he's in the right, and he thinks in the right. Maybe he's made a few tweets saying that he might have gone about this the wrong way, but he doesn't want to stay silent on the matter. He's talked about how he believes himself to have close to being fired or has already been fired. So he's taking that kind of mindset of like either he's out of the company or he might as well be in this state of affairs. There's he's been replying to a lot of fans' tweets about him and stuff like that, and just trying to add a bit more light to this whole matter. It's just a really, really like the potential of exposing the ugly underbelly of the top wrestling promotion in Japan. And again, no one knows the inner workings of that because it is very, very well protected and very well guarded. It's far more well guarded than the US and British wrestling, for instance. It is much harder to break into because that's just what Japanese culture is like. But to have someone decide that he's just going to rip it all apart and just go at it in the way that Ibushi is sending major shockwaves for everyone. And I would say that it's not impossible for him to go back to New Japan even after all of this, because they realise how strong an asset he is. And they could be willing to sweep this under the rug, and they could probably move on from this because of the way that they can guard stuff and they can like try and bring things to a head. I was initially like in the mindset of maybe this was a work early on, but because of the certain phrases that he's using, especially the things that relating to Yakuza and the harassment stuff, and the termination of calling or essentially alluding to New Japan Pro Wrestling as a black company. And a black company is essentially someone who's involved in like allegation sweatshop type things. That's what Japanese people would apply to, like a sweatshop that's good, like underhanded practice, essentially slave labor. Is kind of the terminology that he's using to categorize New Japan and the way that it's run. And those sort of terms you wouldn't use if you were just doing it in a cave. Oh, this is just a work shoot type thing, because this is stuff that could really like damage a company's reputation, even if it was just a joke or just in a lying scenario, or just in a fake way. So essentially if he is leaving New Japan, he's burning every bridge on the way out.
I mean, it's bonkers, man. Doing this.
And again, this leads into more interesting topics beyond just how just explosive all of this seems to be, how much he's informing us about what the inner workings are like, how much he's willing to in the future divulge, because it seems to have like there's been gone a bit radio silent for the last day or so, but there could always be more happening. I mean, essentially, if you actually follow back far enough, there's been an undercurrent of these tweets going out since about like December or January earlier this year, but it's only in the last couple of days where it's all just really exploded and come to the surface. But we have to talk about what's next for him. I think the likelihood is, and maybe this is just me talking, I think that if he's going to be leaving New Japan based on all this stuff, and it seems like a very likely proposition, I don't think he's wrestling full-time anymore, because he won't go to AEW full-time. The reason why I say that is because you're not just going to start a working relationship with New Japan and then start getting bed with the guy who just burnt your entire company to the ground in these tweets, essentially. Because, okay, you can just kiss goodbye to that working relationship, which has already taken 3 years to form and develop into these special shows. I know the Kenny Omega relationship and all of that stuff. But we also have to mention the fact that he doesn't look it, and anyone who's just seen Kota Ibushi would be very surprised to hear this. He's 40 years old. And he's wrestled a very hard style and a very aggressive style in the last like 20 years or so, however long he's been wrestling, past his kickboxing career as well. And he has been injured quite a lot, especially over the last year and a half. He suffered a lot of both physical and just medical illnesses and injuries. So I think that his clock is running out regardless. And I just don't think AEW would risk this newfound relationship with New Japan Pro Wrestling, which has now developed into something a lot stronger than it was even from last year, by getting, like, I don't know, a year or two out of a guy who's more popular and well-known in Japan than he is in the US.
It'd be funny if there's a philosophy backstage going like, we could put him on Ring of Honor. And then it's like, oh, it's not technically whatever. But yeah, I fully agree. I mean, the likelihood that they would just be like, all right, appearances by Kota Ibushi means more than an entire connection point between our two companies seems crazy. Yeah. I mean, you got too many other stars that you can,
although,
you know,
just to play the opposite side of that for a second, what if it becomes, well, if they're such a dirty company, maybe we don't want to work with them because,
true,
you know,
if that turns into one of those things where other people hop on that same bandwagon, and you got somebody like a Jay White or you know, Okada or Tanahashi or these names that are like the big names in this company, if they're all like, yeah, I don't want to be a part of this anymore either, then suddenly AEW becomes the safe haven.
I would take more credence with that if so many people from New Japan have seemingly jumped to the company's defense over this.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not necessarily to defense, but they've decided to target Ibushi rather than the company.
Yeah.
So that makes me feel like Ibushi has isolated himself. He's already spoken about the fact that he started unfollowing loads of people, like loads of accounts. He unfollowed Tanahashi, which seems bonkers considering the relationship those two have had on both as like professionals and as rivals. They've go back a long way. He unfollowed him on Twitter and all this stuff. I don't know, again, it's just social media, but it does seemingly lend some weight to it. Apparently, very recently, he refollowed the New Japan official accounts, and maybe there at least been some background discussions. He's already, there's been quite a few people that have spoken out against him from this approach, because fundamentally, whether Ibushi is in the right to say these sort of things, or at least spread his opinion, or whether any stuff he's saying is truthful, how much of it is embellished. Again, we don't know, because I don't know what the inner workings of New Japan is like. Very, very, very few people do. But I would say that, it's just a bizarre situation, and you just don't do that. You just don't do this in Japan. Right. And so it'll be interesting to see whether they do get over it. They both can just let bygones be bygones. And I don't even know even if they do manage to bury the hatchet, whether that means that he'd still end up working with New Japan going forward. I imagine the only reason they would want to bury the hatchet is because they want him to continue working for them. Because at the end of the day, what harm is it to them if he walks, beyond the fact that he's one of their biggest stars? Obviously, that's a big deal, but they can make new stars. And they have other big stars. They have Okada, they have Tanahashi, they have Naito, they have Jay White. Like, they are fine for top name talent. Ibushi is just another one of those ones. He's arguably one of the most popular ones. But maybe this has hurt his reputation in the eyes of fans as well. We have no idea what the overall reaction would be.
Culture. Yeah, because it's the culture of Japan. Maybe they're just like, hey, this isn't the way we go about doing things. Cool that you're exposing things, but you know, there's another way.
And fundamentally, we go to the thing like, how much is going to hurt New Japan's reputation? Are other companies or other wrestlers going to want to fall out of it? Like, you do realize what WWE is and WWE's history as well. Doesn't seem to be stopping a lot of wrestlers from joining that company, any company in the past. Like, fundamentally, wrestling is a seedy business.
But my argument there would be maybe Japanese people and that culture would care more. Because, like, America, just call it what it is, most Americans don't care. You know?
I mean, maybe, but I think you're giving people a bit too much credit. I don't think we should classify, again, as someone who, I don't want to like paint everyone with the same brush or anything. So you shouldn't really just classify the Japanese as a more, more morally superior race. or anything along those lines, or someone, or people, or a group of people that are more likely to be anti this thing. It's more just a case that they probably understand this stuff, or they understand that things like this do happen, and they're still going to follow. They're probably still going to follow New Japan because that's, at the end of the day, they're fans, and fans are willing to overlook certain things with certain people in the way that other people just won't. And that's always been the case. I mean, look at, again, this is an extreme example. Look at the Michael Jackson thing.
Yeah.
It's like,
I mean, no, that's totally fair.
Look at Michael Jackson. Look at OJ Simpson. Look at anyone like along those lines. People, unless someone is like fully 100% convicted of something, and like it's absolute. I mean, even in those cases, look at, like, there have been plenty of cases where someone has done horrible things, like Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson is beloved nowadays, and some of the shit that he did like 20 years ago.
He was legitimately convicted and spent time.
Yeah, so.
The O.J. Simpson one, I don't think really pans out because
maybe not so much, but you just see about that there is still fandom associated with it, because people will, if you like what a product is doing, or you like what a person does, and you're entertained by their profession or how entertaining they are, you are going to, not everyone, but some people are going to overlook things which are contemptible about their character.
That's fair. I wanted to at least throw that out as, maybe some people would view it this way.
It might cost them fans, it might cost them subscribers. I'm not saying that it's not going to hurt them in any way, shape, or form. And maybe people will just turn against them just because it's Ibushi and people like Ibushi. So there's also that aspect of it as well. I just feel like the effect will be, I'm not saying minimal, but it will be it won't.
It's not irreparable.
It won't scupper them in the long term. I don't think it has any real possibility of disrupting Forbidden Door or this relationship with AEW. If anything, the relationship with AEW will just help strengthen New Japan's position even more. So, but yeah, this is just something that you would never expect to happen. Fundamentally, if this thing ever were to happen, you would never expect it to be Kota Ibushi. And again, about his own future, he's already said that I think he put out in a tweet that he said there's a less than 1% chance that he'd ever go back to DDT, which was the promotion that he was most commonly associated with before joining New Japan Pro Wrestling. AEW is the one that everyone will talk about, but I just think it's unlikely, considering both his age and maybe for a couple of one-off appearances, but based on his age and his.
But to be clear, I wouldn't factor in age as an issue. I think it's mostly just the relationship with Japan.
Yeah, the tenuous relationship. Yeah, WWE maybe. I mean, Shinsuke's there. I don't know how close they were in a relation, or in terms of like if they worked together or they did anything like that. But he has been with the Cruiserweight Classic, so there will be at least. He knows how to get in touch with them. But then again, Triple H is in a position of power, and I assume he was a big part in making the Cruiserweight Classic happen in the first place. But yeah, I mean, there are other wrestling promotions out there. I assume he wouldn't struggle to find work in Japan. There's Noah, there's All Japan Pro Wrestling, there's plenty of other places that he'd go there if he wanted to continue working full time. But I think that what he's saying about his own like physical condition, about how he's struggling to regain fitness after this recovery period is going on for quite a long time at this point. I mean, he's almost been injured a year at this point.
You think that's part of it too? Like, he's just like, you know what? Maybe I'm not gonna come back, and I want to do some good on the way out, and I don't like the way this place is run.
I don't. Again, maybe I'm not. Again, I don't saying that's not 100%. That's not a potential option. I just think that that's also giving him a position of moralistic power. I think that maybe he does think that the company is run badly, but I think he's mostly, based on what the tweets have been seeing out there, he's more concerned about how they've treated him more than they are about all other people. I mean,
but isn't that just inherently the way things are, where his position is going to be, I'm going to, upset the apple cart here and be the person to change things?
I don't know. Like that's because there's so many tweets out there and there's so many things about it and follow on, so it's difficult to really know what his true intentions are. Just on the surface, I think that he's not trying to create a movement as such. He's bitter about how he feels he was treated and he's going to try and expose people for it. So I don't see it
also
as an
a fair
act
possibility.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, again, maybe my interpretation is wrong, but I don't see it as an act of defiance and wanting to spark change. I think it's a case of these guys fucked me over. I'm going to fuck them even harder. That
totally possible.
That's the next New Japan show. I'll fuck you harder.
Fuck you harder.
Well, let's go from one Kota to another here, because we know what most likely is going to be the next ring name for Dakota Kai, which is King Kota, because she trademarked it. What do you guys think about it?
I like it. Fun.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty cool name. I guess it's a kind of a play on King Cobra. Is that or isn't that is there a TV? Oh, it's Cobra Kai I'm thinking of, which also would actually make sense as a cool name as well. But I guess King Cobra and King Kota, because King Cobra is a thing, so that could work as well. It's better than Evie. I think it would be weird if she returned to that old name.
I think she had recently said something about that, where she was just like, I was Evie, I picked at random, but I don't know what's next for me. So I think she kind of had the same philosophy of like, that's my phrase today, is philosophy. But she had the same idea of like, I don't want to be Evie. I want to do something else. And King Kota, I mean, I don't think it 100% fits her. But at the same time, I mean, the name itself, I like. There's plenty of other names out there that are much worse. There's also another trademark. Yeah, that's the most important thing, is if she's having fun with that name, then, it's her name. She gets to pick it. And somebody picked Rip Fowler for NXT.
Did somebody pick? Well, all right. I saw this from a Twitter account, and I'm just gonna throw it out there. Is Jordan Devlin's name for NXT America?
I think so. I think so, because NXT UK this week had Ilya Dragunov with brand new music, which I think is awful. He retained his title over Jordan Devlin, and that match, from something that I did not know was the case with these spoilers, is a loser leaves NXT UK match.
Neither one of us knew that, because I said, hey, Tony, when did they do that? You said, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, because I mean, I had read the spoilers ahead of time, and they're up on Smark at moment for anybody who's interested in knowing what happens over the next few weeks, where it had been said Jordan Devlin won the title, but the match was restarted, and then Dragunov retained. And I was like, oh, okay, so they just did some kind of, bullshitty angle, or they tried to record both and keep people on their toes, and you don't know which spoiler is going to be true. Did not hear anything about a loser leaves NXT UK match, but from when that happened, I was like, all right, well, then he's going to NXT, because we are moving a lot of people over, it seems. Pretty Deadly is over on NXT now. Nathan Fraser is down there now. I think Rip Fowler is Jordan Devlin, because we so far haven't heard anything about who this Rip Fowler is.
Rip Fowler kind of sounds to the ear like Finn Balor.
It does, doesn't it?
Keep that going.
Just the guy that looks like Finn Balor and was trained by Finn Balor is Rip Fowler. What?
We don't know if it's gonna be Devlin. I don't know if he's even gonna stick around, but I just want to put that out there, because you're right. Usually when they've been trademarking these things, we hear some names beforehand. This time we didn't.
And it could technically be, we're renaming Javier Bernal, or somebody who is just on like the Performance Center side of things, and
renaming Joaquin Wilde. Yeah,
I mean, they could be doing that stuff just as easily, but the timing is pretty interesting as far as just being like, all right, why not go with Quinn Valor?
Well, just first of all, it seems bizarre that they would put their current NXT UK champion in a loser leaves NXT UK match.
Yeah. You'd think that him putting the title on the line is already enough.
Yeah, it would be enough. Yeah, he loses the title. He loses the title. If Jordan Devlin loses, he's out of NXT UK. That's
right.
Like, but I guess they wanted to add even more stakes to it. Like, it's not even the title on the line. You're out of a job, buddy. If you lose this match, go from champion, like literally go from hero to zero in that regard. But
well, I mean, if he would have lost that, he would have just came back as Tiger Tehran number 2. So.
But it's just so, again, like the name. Of course, he's going to have to change his name from Jordan Devlin, even though he wrestled in NXT and became NXT Cruiserweight Champion as Jordan Devlin, and will just have to come in as Rip Fowler or whatever he ends up changing his name to. But yeah, I think that probably that all checks out. Again, we could go through the same like routines like, oh, what a dumb name, why are they changing people's names? But we all know this is the way things are now, so there's no point like beating it over.
Rip Fowler's a fine name.
Rip. Well, the only guy I know is called Rip is Rip Torn.
Well, no, the Hulk Hogan and No Holds Barred. You gotta rip him, you know?
Yeah, that was a great name, yeah.
It's at least it sounds like it could be a pro wrestler. Like Rip Fowler, I could see on a poster, rather than something like, I don't know, James Smith, where it's just like, okay, fuck, is that my accountant? You know? It's got a gimmicky sense to it, so I'm okay with that. And Jordan Devlin, okay, you know, I mean, his name's a name. It's not like he's losing much. He's not going from being Macho Man Randy Savage to, I don't know, Trent Johnson. You know?
To be honest, it's actually not the Rip side of it that actually bothers me too much. It's the Fowler side of it.
Yeah,
it's just like it just doesn't flow. Like Rip Fowler, it just seems so weird that's the name they decided to come up with. Like I could understand like Rip. I don't know. I'm trying to think. Like, it needs to something that's a bit more powerful or punchy or something.
Rip Ripley, you know, like.
Oh yeah,
Rip really.
Like I mean, Rip Danger or something, but like it's just again that's a dumb thing. But it says like it feels like it's more of a action movie character. The Fowler is the weird part of it, really.
He's got to change his finishing move's name. Can't be the Devil Inside anymore, because it's not going to be like what the Fowler Up or something like. The foul play.
Foul play. I like that. There we go. You see we're putting it together.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's go to another thing here. Let's go to if we're going trademarks and stuff. There's a new Ring of Honor logo. It's bland as all hell in my mind.
Well, first of all, we got to see it in color. Second of all, I don't hate it. I seem to be the only one, but I don't hate it. Because quite frankly, the Ring of Honor logo that everybody loves is literally just text. I never liked the one that Joaquin Wilde did that they had for, I don't know how many years.
The one that's got all the points to it?
Yeah, like I never liked that. That seemed outdated even when they introduced it.
Is it too pointy like the gun barrel in Casino Royale?
Yes. No, like I never liked that. This looks fine. I gotta see it in color because the colors might completely change my mind.
Yeah, I've seen it. It does look very bland in its current state. Again, I think I saw SRS's tweet about it, and it seemed like I remember the quote saying like, "We do not know if it's complete yet," or something to that effect. So if that is literally what it is, then yeah, that is weird. That is weirdly bland, and maybe if you're doing it, maybe it's sort of play on the idea of okay, this is like the pure wrestling company, so it's just going to have a stark, standalone, no nonsense logo to it, which I guess I can kind of understand, but it doesn't prevent it from looking bland still. So hopefully when it is finalized, we see what the final end product is, or they just looked at that and decided, okay, we need to go back to the drawing board now because we've heard the reaction to it, and Tony Khan does seem to be a guy who's receptive to criticism online, and
perhaps too receptive.
Perhaps too receptive, but at least in some instances it's proven positive. So maybe there'll be I think by the end it will look better than what it currently is.
If you look on 99designs.co.uk for Ring of Honor wrestling logo refresh, where there's some other design ideas.
You got that link, just so I don't have to type that all in. What was that?
I'll send it to you. It's 99designs.co.uk, but there are a couple other ones. This is where the one by a Pepper Pasquale had one or whatever, but I really like this one design that's on there. Let me try to find who has
it's freaking it's Zima, it's Joaquin Wild.
Yeah, but Pepper Pasquale is the name that it's under.
Oh, some of these are really good. What the?
I like the one by Logo Square where the O is actually like a diamond, because it's.
I really like that.
The thing about it is it looks like a diamond with the silver kind of thing, but it's actually a ring, like a wrestling ring. That I don't like the R as much on that one. I'd kind of play around with that a little bit, but that to me is like, all right, that's a damn good logo, because it sort of looks like a diamond. It looks like a ring. It's got the ROH. It's very easy to put on almost anything. You can put it in different colors and it would work well. I was kind of hoping that if they did it,
partnered with 99 Designs, but that is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, that looks really good.
I think that's pretty sleek. I would have wanted something like that. I'm not a big fan of overly dramatic logos on a lot of things. I think that simple's better, but then at the same time, I don't like this minimalist kind of way that a lot of people are doing logos these days, where it's just typing out the text and it's like, all right, well, we used to have a logo where you could recognize the branding and it would be like an icon, and now we just typed out the name of the thing in Arial. Like, I hate that shit, but I'm not liking the ROH thing for that same reason. I just this new ROH logo is just too bland. First off, we've talked about this with championships and everything. I don't like round designs all that much.
That's weird. First of all, you don't like round, but whatever.
It depends on like what it is. Obviously, certain things round works, but when it doesn't need to be, I tend not to gravitate towards rounder designs. It's just something like the R in this ROH. It's got the rounded thing, and I think it looks a little childish. A lot of the time, the more round that it is, the more that I sort of feel like, okay, well, this reminds me, honestly, it's weird enough to call attention to this. The company Deke, D-I-C, that did a lot of kids shows, where it would just, at the end of the show, it would just be like, Deke. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that a little bit, Like this ROH thing. I'm not liking it. It's just big, bold, rounded kind of text. And if anybody looks up the Deke logo, you'll see what I mean. You just change the ROH and you type a DIC, and it's the same thing, basically. You put it inside a slightly slanted rectangle.
Callum, have you ever been involved in any kind of like redesign project or logo work? We had to sit in on like trying to discuss what the new logo could be for something, because I know you do work in marketing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I've been in. It's not like heavily my area because I'm a copywriter and so I'm not a designer. I don't have the keenest design eye by my own admission, but yeah, I have been involved in like some sort of logo design things, or at least being part of the discussion surrounding it.
So where do you stand on this? Do you a minimalist guy, or you like a little bit of flavor?
I mean, it's going to be like probably the blandest answer I could give out anyway, but it's just
whatever fits the brand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's whatever fits the brand. Like some ones really do fit a more minimalist design, and you just want to be, it needs to just be stark and straight in your face. Other ones would benefit from one which is just very flamboyant and out there and completely abstract. So yeah, there's no one size fits all thing, and I don't have a preference one way or the other really. I like to be adaptable in these sort of environments.
Yeah, I mean, like in that regard, I don't like that ROH honor, that ROH logo that they have been using for years with the sharp kind of edges and everything. Because to me, I think that that's a little bit over the top and it's trying too hard in a lot of ways. Where it's like, oh, we're all blades everywhere. Every part of our letter has a blade to it, or But like, I really like the current WWE logo. But at the same time, I've seen other versions of it that are just a little bit better. Like you just slightly change. Maybe you make it's less pointed towards the tips of the W, and you make it a little bit more blocky, like the way that the old logo used to be, or something. Like I like the newer, older version of the SmackDown logo. How they went back to that. I didn't like the one that just looked like they put text in italics.
Just in my experience, again, it's sort of like just from what I've seen, typically the bigger the company, the more minimalist the logo.
Kinda, yeah.
You get the sense that for some reason, and I don't know why, there's this logic behind it. I assume it's some sort of marketing psychology. But the more minimalist your logo is, it makes you just feel bigger because you don't need to be ostentatious about it. You're not trying to scream at people. You just say, yeah, we're good. This is our logo. You know how good we are. Just get on with it, that type of thing. Whereas if you're a bit more of a smaller company or like a family business, then that's the one where you go a bit more like over the top because not so much you're compensating for it, but you need something to help you stand out more from the bigger competition that's out there.
Now, I agree with that, but there's also the idea that the whole world kind of shifted to a minimalist approach to things.
Well, that's also part of the psychology of it because the smaller companies then realized that by having the more ostentatious logos, they were painting themselves as a smaller company. And so if you want to make yourself feel bigger than you actually are, then you go with a minimalist logo because then that puts you in line with the bigger companies. So it's this whole like big companies want to, if they want to have a more ostentatious logo, they want to feel more like family owned and small and relatable to their audiences. So it's just all like this whole thing. I wouldn't like bore anyone with the details about it, but it's just like there are multiple ways. There are loads of big companies that do have ostentatious logos. There are a lot of small companies that have minimalist ones, and they do it for a variety of reasons. Again, it's just all adaptable and it's whatever feels good in the moment.
And it's all, I mean, people are the reason that people go to school for a lot of these things. They try to study the specifics of, hey, if we decide that we're going to change Patreon from this previous logo to one that's like a rectangle and a dot, then that's going to suddenly change and refresh and rebrand and whatever. And people are going to be more interested in, I'm looking up like minimalist logo redesigns right now. And it's like, some of them are absolutely fucking ridiculous. Like Petco, they go from having the word Petco and a logo of a dog and a cat to, okay, well, we're going to have just the word Petco and we're going to change the color to blue. I don't think anybody is changing whether or not they're going to shop at PetSmart or Petco versus the different logo. Like, oh, well, they got rid of the dog and the cat, so I think I'm going to go spend twice as much money for this or something. Like, and Burger King and some of these do have some better designs here and there, but I mean, I look at something like WCW, to tie this back specifically into pro wrestling. I don't really like that WCW logo from the earlier days where it's like the blue
the font.
The blue font where it slightly cuts into the W's and the C kind of goes into the W like that. But I like it way better than that one that they had that's supposed to be like a star shape, because I never, as a kid, realized that says WCW.
It wasn't until I was doing the podcast with Callum, 2001 Wrestling Odyssey, that I went, oh, it's supposed to say WCW. Mm-hmm. Got it.
Because it's just messy as all hell. So, like, it could be worse, the new Ring of Honor logo, but I don't like this one. So, for anybody that feels like you need to be part of one extreme or the other, it could be like, well, it could be garbage, so you need to like this. No, it could be worse. Doesn't mean I like this. But I'm curious to see if they do tweak it at least a little bit. Sometimes the trademarks do come out a little bit more bland compared to what they actually are, and sometimes they end up being exactly the same. And then sometimes you get something like Great Balls of Fire where WWE trademarked it like 7 times and they kept changing the logo and it still ended up being something that was shit. But at least it's something that they're moving it forward. They're progressing with this ROH thing, and I'm still curious to see where it ends up landing. I think it's going to be on an HBO Max type of deal, but we'll see about that. Trademarks are out of the way. Let's talk about Starrcast. That's going to be returning around SummerSlam in Nashville. They've been off for a few years, mostly because of COVID, it seems. And I don't know of any kind of direct ties to any specific companies, which is a little bit of a different.
Lambert had the best tweet. Cody won Starrcast in the divorce because it's the weekend of SummerSlam.
I mean, Conrad seems to be still heading that whole thing, and maybe they are going to elaborate more on that in the future. But Starrcast is something that's interesting. I think that there is room for pro wrestling convention types, but I had said before, I really kind of, maybe it's just the organization in me that just goes like, I want to merge these things together. But I wish that WWE was able to expand WrestleMania Access a little bit better and to just do that as like the thing and have it be WrestleMania week and, whatever. But Starrcast is an interesting way to go about it because the non-WWE homogenized approach to everything, you can get any random ass people on Starrcast. People that are on the low end, people that are former names that are retired, that they're not doing anything anymore. I think could be kind of fun. If you're a real big pro wrestling fan, you're in the Nashville area, why not?
It should be really good. I'm sure they'll have great panels.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be some stuff that people will definitely enjoy. I assume Bischoff will be there because if it was an AEW one, he probably wouldn't be. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I'm sure they'll find plenty of fun things to do.
What would you like to see? Like, what's a topic you would like to hear talked about?
I mean, have we really heard enough about the Montreal Screwjob? That's probably something to be.
Yeah, I don't want to hear any. I'll say this: I don't want to hear any Monday Night War. I don't hear any Montreal. I'm done. Like, we're good. We've covered that from base to base. We're good.
About an hour and a half long sit down with Kota Ibushi.
I'd listen to that.
I'm just wondering if, like, because we don't know who would be going to this thing. You just assume that because it's now, I don't say like it's attached to SummerSlam, but it's happening on SummerSlam weekend, so it has more of a WWE flavor to it. That you're going to see a lot of. Well, you won't see any AEW people, I imagine, on it, and that means no Ring of Honor, likely no New Japan, but I don't think New Japan would ever be involved in that sort of thing anyway. So maybe some independent stuff, but I'm just trying to think of who would appear at this. Assume you imagining people like Angle, maybe Bret Hart. You imagine not Ric Flair again because of the 10-year relationship with WWE, but maybe the hatchet's being buried a little bit there.
Well, I mean, it isn't.
I can't think of anything that really catches my attention. Of like, I really want this person to be here and talk about this. Like, I really want to know even more. Like Undertaker to move away from his persona even further at this point, or Kane to talk about homeless people.
So my 7-panel move is you gotta know how to protect your character.
I don't think that we're gonna be seeing this have a direct tie to WWE, where it's gonna be like, okay, you can't be here unless you are somebody who is in the WWE family. So I could see Ric Flair being a part of it for sure. But I do think that means that we're not going to see the AEW side. And maybe they're going to get some people like a Joey Janela who isn't in there anymore.
One from the WWE side. Somebody sit down with Triple H.
I mean, that would be something that I would love.
Get him to talk for like an hour about NXT.
But I don't see that this is going to be some WWE sponsored type of deal. So...
Well, I don't think running it with Starrcast, and quite frankly, it is weird that Starrcast is back for this, and Cody's back because they could run it with Forbidden Door.
I don't think he wouldn't do this because like if they would do then. But the one thing that would interest me is Cody speaking for an hour and a half. Cody and Brandy speaking for an hour and a half about why the relationship with AEW broke down.
I thought about that, but that's the only way I'd be interested in a Cody panel because I've heard Cody talk enough.
I really liked that Stone Cold podcast though. Broken Skull sessions with him. I thought like that was a really good episode.
Randy would be a good one. Did you get Randy to talk about being a dumbass for several years before, fixing himself up?
I think not a single person that's on the WWE roster or in that family right now has any chance of showing up on this. If it's anybody that can be kind of associated with them, it's going to be older wrestlers that are on the Legends contract, like, like a Sergeant Slaughter or like a, well, I mean, I don't know how many people are really on contracts like that anymore.
Brett. Brett's
Brett.
Like right now. I'd get Brett to do something.
But I don't think that we're going to get any kind of like, okay, well, WWE people are going to pop up there. Then again, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
That's where you're wrong, pal. I think they will.
We will see. And if you are in the area, check it out. Maybe. Could be kind of fun. Switch it over to another thing here, though. If we talk about AEW, let's talk about MJF. The hearsay and speculation and everything is even more so these days, being like, hey, MJF does not like his current contract, and these talks don't keep getting any better. They keep getting worse. Where at 2024, I mean, it seems like a long way away, but at the same time, it is only 2 years away, and he is pretty damn young. WWE looking at him as like a quote unquote savior superstar, and him potentially wanting to leave, and Cody Rhodes being a big factor in his career, and Cody being in there, and I don't know. I mean, the stars are seemingly kind of aligning. If I'm getting worked, I'm buying into it,
Bro, I don't want to get too into this just because it's 2 years away. And I don't want to be like, well, he's definitely going to go because maybe he just wants more money. And I'm sure they'd be more than willing to accommodate because he's worth more money if that's what it is. Maybe he wants more freedom. Maybe he just wants his name out there. You know what I mean? And I know that Sean reported that the relationship is still strenuous and he is legitimately considering joining WWE. I'm going to take the calm approach here and say, well, yeah, it's a business. You should want to go where the money is. Should always be about the money first, passion second. And quite frankly, Cody being in WWE showed me some people are better off there. And maybe Max will be one of them. I think AEW provides a lot of freedom for MJF to say certain things, but maybe Max is better off in WWE. Just because he's about as sports entertainment as it gets.
Much more so than Daniel Garcia and Jake Hager.
You seen that, Barry? That's not sports entertainment, or I don't know what. No, with the MJF thing, again, like as Rob says, you do take the business-minded approach. WWE can offer him tons more money if they wanted to join them, and he would be a small investment because even in the more tempered-in style, the WWE, the more very, very strict scripting WWE seems to have, I'm sure with NJF's promo ability, he'd be able to thrive there. They would have to obviously keep his name as MJF. I don't think they could do it and call him
Fowler.
Yeah. Jerk Johnson or something like that or whatever. But yeah, I think that they would probably make a special exception for that. And yeah, I think that there should be a lot of emphasis on the AEW side of things to give him as big a contract as they can afford without, absolutely just ripping their entire structure apart. Because at the end of the day, MJF is a huge star for the future and for the present. I mean, you just have to look at that the segment on the latest episode of AEW to know just how big of a fucking deal this guy is. And so I would not bat an eyelid if AEW look to in the next 2 years do what they can with him, because obviously at least for the next 2 years he's completely under contract with them, and they can run the stories up until then and then just see what happens. There may be, he might have already have his heart set on this, he might be considering his options, he might be just doing a play for more money, and he'd have every right to do so. At the end of the day, especially in WWE, and again, this is for AEW as well, but like especially in WWE, considering how much the company is worth, wrestlers don't get paid enough. Even though they get paid millions of dollars a year, they still don't get paid nearly enough what they should get paid. And you just, so I would have no problem. Well, I say that I'd have no qualms, and I completely understand if he did leave for WWE. Obviously, I'd be annoyed because I like AEW and I don't like watching WWE stuff. So if MJF was to go, that'd be a big hit to my fandom of AEW. But it's not. It's not like I could say no, stay because I want you to stay here. That's just not the way it works. So. And maybe by that point, it's 2 years down the road. Maybe WWE has completely turned a corner at that point in time and is producing some really good stuff. I doubt it because the previous last 2 years. But things do change.
God willing, Callum.
Yeah, no. You have to live in hope at some point.
That's what WWE is living and dying on at this stage. Is the hope that the next thing will be better, even though it's been 4 years since they said, "Well, it's been a couple of years and we need to apologize."
And fundamentally, maybe this is the point of this is Attitude Era point. This is the point where they're coming out of 95, 96, all the people they've built up just aren't working. They've got no stars whatsoever. They've got Brett and they've got Shawn, and that's about it. And they have to pick up a guy from WCW to turn the whole place around, and one young guy from their developmental territory at the time, and comes up through the ranks, has a bad start, but becomes one of the biggest stars of all time.
I hear what you're saying. WrestleMania 40, Braun Breaker MJF.
I mean, 40 might be a bit of an early stretch. I'd say that's probably you're looking probably 42, 43 at that one.
Which one did they just run?
38.
38.
All right.
It's not like 97. They were doing Rock and Austin. They had to wait until 99.
41. Look, 41. Braun Breaker MJF.
I don't think Braun Breaker is that type of a major star, but
he's not. They'd need someone else for that. But then again, and that's the point. This is now the era where you can just take the biggest stars from AEW because you have the big leverage in terms of money, and not everyone's going to go for that. Not everyone may just prefer the working conditions in AEW and the landscape and the greater freedom that it appears to offer, at least from the outside. So some people, that will be their priority. It's not like they're being paid cents or whatever and stuff like that, and they're just scraping by. They're still earning a decent living. But yeah, the fact of the matter is WWE offers considerably more buying power than AEW. So if people do want to go where the money lies and be there for a while, then that's to WWE's advantage. That's the advantage of being there 50, 60 years earlier than your competition.
Well, one place I do not expect MJF to be popping up, but it is yet another company that is showing up these days, which I'm considering writing up an article just to rant about how not everybody needs their own goddamn company at this point. Come on. I like that there's some variety, but at the same time, I don't think the authors of pain need to start this wrestling entertainment series that's going to launch on June 4th. I just can't picture that's
Sometimes in life, Tony, you need to control your narrative. And you do that by creating your own promotion. I think that's become easier because more venues are available and things like that. Fundamentally, I agree with you, though.
It's just it waters everything down to me. And I won't keep repeating the same things I've said before about how merging things makes things a little bit easier. And it makes things, you get the best of all the worlds and, all that kind of crap. But they advertise it as the biggest names in pro wrestling are going to, no, they're not.
Well,
they're not. You know, I mean, the biggest names in pro wrestling are signed to the biggest companies, and the ones that are the biggest names on the indies show up at every fucking thing like this. So what's the difference? The logo's not bad. I'll give them that. The name is bland. Wrestling Entertainment Series.
Does this tie into their metaverse deal at all? Is this going to be wrestling in the metaverse at all? Anyone know?
No, nothing I'm aware of.
But
then even then, if you were to go with that, you go with like a different name of like Meta Wrestling something or whatever. Like Wrestling Entertainment Series. You know what that sounds like to me? You ever see those things at dollar stores? To bring up dollar stores for the second time on this podcast, oddly enough, where it'll be like
bootleg toys.
Yeah, the bootleg toys will be like, you know, adult samurai turtle men. And you're like, okay, this is clearly just Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or instead of Power Rangers, it'll be like, you know, Power Squadron, and the slightly off kind of designs and everything. Wrestling Entertainment Series, you might as well call it Television Pro Wrestling Show or something. Like, oh man, I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, I'm not butthurt by it, but like, it's fine. Like, okay, it's another show for me to eventually gather results from. Okay.
Yeah, I'm all for it. Like, I'm in the complete opposite camp where I just want. There's all the case like I just want more wrestling promotions, because at the end of the day, I'm probably not going to watch it. But who the fuck cares? It's like if I don't want to watch it, then someone else will, and so that's down to them.
The thing is that everybody is very much into like, yeah, well, I'm super into Battle Slam, this promotion that, you know, specifically made for this audience. Everything is so niche that it's hard to cover these things in a broad spectrum.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You guys come from a position of immediate bias in the fact that like if it does become big, then you will have to follow it, and so I understand the position you're coming from. But for me, just as someone who just watches the wrestling promotions that he wants to watch, it's just a case of, yeah, if it's good, then I'll watch it. If it's not, then who cares? And it's like, and when I say good, I mean, I don't mean like a objective good. I mean, if it's for me, then I'll watch it. If it's not, then it's not. And I'm sure someone will enjoy it, and other people will go to watch it, and it means that wrestlers are making money, and that's always good.
I mean, that's, you know, in that sense, but at the same time, when I look at it as like the overall grand scheme of things, I tend to look at it in the way that I look at like comic industries. Yeah, Marvel and DC are the two main things. And then you get something like an Image, and they go, well, we're going to be the Rebels and the ECW to that kind of thing. But then I go, how many fucking people understand who Icon and Rocket are? And then they're like, oh, but it's great for the fans, whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's great. If you are a big fan of whatever the niche is, I want your shit to be amazing and for all your fans to have the most fun that they possibly can. Just the same as, you know, I've never eaten at a tapas place. Like, I've just never done that, because that's primarily, you go there, you eat little bites of things, you spend a shit ton of money, and you're there for the drinks, and I'm not somebody who drinks alcohol. If that's great, it's a great tapas place, awesome. I'm never going to go there. And if I were to be like, okay, what's the thing that can get the most attention and probably make the most rounds and get the most people involved and be for the betterment of everyone, the niche things don't play out that way. And like AOP starting their own thing, if it's great, awesome.
They're smart dudes. I'd be willing to see what they come up with, but I hope it's something special.
I just kind of feel like we just won't hear anything about it soon enough, and then it'll be another like, all right, well then that one faded into this, and then that faded into that, and I'm just like, all right, moving on then.
So who cares? Just like, it would be the first, it wouldn't be the last wrestling promotion to just have a couple of shows and then die. It's like, again, the world just moves on. It's not like the earth is falling into itself or something like that.
No, it's not the biggest thing in the world, but I'm like, man, I think people kind of have to stop thinking that they all need to have their own such and such. Everyone has to have their own YouTube channel. I say this knowing full well.
We can't say
are we going to be? Are we in a case of people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, Tony?
Yeah, to a certain extent.
I think if you'll find, we're not exactly Wrestle Talk or Voice of Wrestling or something like that. So
no, but I will always say this. What I try to do for my stuff, I always try to look at it and go, if everybody else is doing that and I can't do it better, I'm not going to do it. Like, you don't see on Smark Out Moment, I'm going to copy and paste the same breaking news stories that every other site is. Fuck it, I'm not doing it. But we'll do Superstar Scores. People aren't doing that. Or we'll do the Mount Rushmore things, where I'm seeing a little bit more of it these days, but like, when we started doing that, people weren't really doing the Mount Rushmore discussions. They were only doing the one who is the Mount Rushmore, and they would ask those questions on an interview. Whereas we were like, okay, well, we're going to gimmick the fuck out of this and whatever. I will always say to anybody who says about Smark Out Moment, you can't find the Smark Out Moment material outside of the TV coverage. You can't find that elsewhere. I want to know what about Wrestling Entertainment Series is going to be different from every other fucking indie show where you go, we got Chris Masters here. Oh man, one of the biggest names on the indies is so-and-so that he wrestled on 7 other big name indie whatever type of things. Okay, if it's another indie show, why should I care over the other one? And I want to see them do that. Like, that's why the thing with the SAG story with Freddie Prinze Jr., I'm like, that I'm interested in, because he's going to do something different.
Yeah, but again, it'll probably just take time to just figure out. Like, we'll have to see what their presentation is like and all this other thing. If we do end up watching it, because at the end of the day, there's still a good possibility that I just won't end up paying attention to it beyond this news story. But at the end of the day, that's my prerogative, and that's anybody else's prerogative. You can follow it, you can choose not to. That's totally down to you, unless you're paid to specifically follow it. In which case, it's kind of not your prerogative; it's kind of your job. But,
right. I mean, then I'm going to potentially be paying attention to this. So you have it down on my notes as far as
end up knowing anything about this will be me.
More so than anybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
My job will fall into it.
But yeah, just we just get into the topic of if they do have some sort of niche, then they'll probably have some sort of lifeblood to them. If they don't, then they'll probably die, or just fall into the miasma of indie promotions that people don't watch. But you do have to have some kind of differentiating factor in order to build up that kind of engender that kind of interest. Like Ring of Honor had the more pure wrestling aspect of it, which helped differentiate them a little bit. You have like MLW's a bit more aggressive, hardcore. It's almost like a heir apparent to ECW in other places. Same probably could apply to really GCW as well. And Control Your Narrative hires flat earthers and sex offenders. So that's how they differentiate themselves.
But that's my issue with Impact. And where I always go, man, if these companies merge, Impact would be one of the first things I would have to go.
Here's what Impact has. The women.
No, here's what Impact has. 75 people turning up to their TV tapings every single time they record. That is an indication that, yeah, this company might as well be dead. Like, and again, I don't like saying that, because at the end of the day, I would much rather watch episodes of Impact Wrestling than WWE. Pretty much any of their shows. I'd rather watch Impact. But at the end of the day, people aren't interested in what they do. If
they have a good women's division, is it actually anything different, or is it just that you care a little bit more about the women's division? If you took a couple of those names and better writing and you put them on AEW or WWE, it's the same thing, Yeah.
They themselves don't offer anything different beyond just putting the current wrestlers they have in a bigger position, because they don't have other wrestlers. They don't have like the top names in wrestling. But this is a place where you can have like I'm trying to think of like Eddie Edwards or a Rich Swann or a Moose or a Josh Alexander, and you can make them like your main event guys, because in a WWE or not so much AEW, because AEW would probably use their talents as well as Impact has done, or at least to a certain degree, but they wouldn't be as highly positioned as they can be in Impact. But then again, I still think that's useful as well, because you need to give talent the opportunity to be these sort of talents, opportunity to be main eventers and higher level stars, because they won't learn that anywhere else, because WWE won't give them that straight out of the bat.
I look at Impact as the big indie.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, Impact for me is an equivalent to the what's the a level below Major League Baseball, like the
You're asking people that don't follow any of this. Yeah,
I believe it's AAA.
What, like the wrestling promotion?
No.
What, the battery?
Was essentially it's just the people that like are in the developmental, like it's a wider developmental thing, really. Like you still have some veterans in there that have just come down from who've had their quote unquote time in the spotlight and have come down to just have a bit more extend that out a little bit more in a smaller promotion. But yeah, it's a place where a lot of young talent can get their start, make a name for themselves before moving on to an AEW or a WWE. Like they're the big leagues.
We're all dumb because it's just literally called minor league baseball.
Okay, yeah. So they go. Yeah, it's the top of the minors is Impact Wrestling, and I think that it's a totally important role to have. It doesn't necessarily need to be Impact. It could be MLW, like Impact, MLW, previously Ring of Honor. But companies at that GCW, companies of that ilk are super important, but they won't realistically. None of them will ever be the majors, and they can't compete with the majors,
even if they have the majors on their brand.
Mm.
Major Bros are still there, right?
Yeah, they're still there. Good job.
So I mean, that's one of those other discussions that we have there.
You're an amazing person, Tony. Don't let anybody ever tell you different.
I am an amazing person, and as an amazing person, I'm going to tell you an amazing deal that is going on right now, because our sponsors for this episode, you should know them, you should love them, are Manscaped. And if you go ahead and you pick up their Performance Package 4.0 or their Perfect Package 4.0, right now you got the option of getting actually a free gift on top of that. 2 free gifts now I'm looking at this. It's a free pair of boxers and a travel bag. And if you use the promo code SMARK, you get the free shipping and the 20% off. I'm pretty sure that it all kind of doubles up on each other. So 20% off, free shipping, free bag, and a free pair of boxers. I mean, that's something that you shouldn't pass up. The stuff that you get in that performance package or perfect package is all amazing things as well, like the lawnmower and the weed whacker and the crop preserver, the crop reviver. The magic mat is something that I haven't tried. It's matte, but you know how that works. If you ever use any of these products, you're going to have to clean something up afterward. And that's a great way to just be like, all right, you know, I'm going to keep it all in one spot and not have to decontaminate an area. I guess you could say it's a nicer way of putting it. But if you are interested in this or anything else that is on that site, go ahead and browse. And just keep in mind that promo code SMARK, SMARK, 20% off, free shipping. And with those deals in particular, those free gifts that you get on top of that, I would recommend it. We would all recommend it. We've all tried their products. We all like them a lot. I, again, of course, have the deodorant on right now, and I use the body spray earlier as well. Do that every single day. Definitely going to pick up some more of that when I run out of that. But even something like the shampoo and the conditioner and the body wash and all that, it lasts quite a while. So if you're investing in this kind of stuff, you know that you're not going to just be wasting your money. And we want to thank everybody from Manscaped for sponsoring this. We want to thank you for picking it up and letting Manscaped know that we sent you their way by using that promo code. And let's move on now here with some TV talk. We already talked about NXT UK, but we got some other things we can talk about. We can go Monday Night Raw. We can go Dynamite. Can't go SmackDown because it hasn't already happened yet. We got NXT. Where do you guys want to go?
Go NXT. Talk about NXT spotlighting their women.
This did seem like a female-heavy kind of episode, which, I mean, that's
21 women across 2 hours.
Not a bad thing whatsoever. They finally got some names to pop up and do something. We got the NXT Tag Team title match for the women's titles. The Roxanne Perez and Wendy Chu team lost to Toxic Attraction. We got the women's breakout tournament starting. Nikita Lyons beat Ariana Grace. Fallon Henley beat Sloane Jacobs. What else we got? We got Alba Fire made her quote-unquote debut. I hate that they do that against Amari Miller.
Damn it, I will not call it a debut.
Yeah, it's her return with a rename. And Cora Jade lost to Natalya, but then Natalya decided to give her a handshake afterward and kind of turn a little babyface, and they're going to ignore it on SmackDown anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Was the match as good? Cal, you probably haven't seen it, have you?
Not all the way through.
Well, from what you've seen, is it as good as people are making it out to be?
The Cora Jade and Natalia one.
Yeah.
I've heard mixed things. I've heard some people that have said it was a good match. I've heard some people say that they didn't mesh well together. I have seen the finish, which is Cora Jade seems to be essentially it's a mix of the finish with the Adam Cole Dax Howard match that happened the very next night. But Natalia puts Cora in the sharpshooter. She keeps trying to struggle towards the rope. She stays in it for a long time, and then literally at the exact same moment as Natalia's losing grip on the sharpshooter, and Cora Jade passes out. And it's just, it's quite funny that I could just see that, oh my God, Natalia's about to fall onto her knees here. She can't hold it any longer. And that's at the point that Cora just immediately passes out. So that was quite funny. But yeah, it's probably one of those matches that people will say, yeah, it's a good job. And
was it her best? I guess it was Cora's best match.
Again, I don't know about that either, because frankly, I haven't seen a lot of Cora matches that I'm a big fan of anyway. But, and Natalia's hit and this as well. So again, I would say just watch it and form your own opinions, because there are probably many of those out there.
Fair enough.
But I mean, this episode, from what the bits and pieces that I've heard more than seen, yeah, it's the typical batshit show in places. Obviously, a big exposure to the women, and I'm sure a lot of people will be big fans of that. But then you had the crazy stuff with, what was the thing? It was Saray and Andre Chase.
Yeah.
Tiffany Stratton and
against Barbie and
Grayson Waller.
Yeah. And they did the thing where Saray transformed, and that suddenly also changed Andre Chase's sweater color, and Bodie Hayward became a cheerleader.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
It was fun. It was funny. It's like you still have so Fallon Henley won one of the matches. So it was Fallon and Nikita that won, and obviously it seems to be that Nikita is the very heavy favourite to win this entire tournament.
Very much so. Which, I mean, that's no shocker.
It'll be either her or Roxanne, but they've already had Roxanne has eaten multiple pinfalls in the last couple of weeks anyway, so that's already taken a bit of shine off of her.
But you had some Mafia stuff. You had that they abducted the what's his name, AJ Galante. So this time around, you ended up getting Cruz del Toro was taken away, and Escobar and D'Angelo are going to fight next week. We
talk about this a little bit because NXT has a real kidnapping problem.
Yeah.
Because those two have just been kidnapped in the last 2 weeks, and also Bron Breakker's been abducted as well.
They have two big problems. It's kidnapping, and it's we decide that we want to prank, in particular, Toxic Attraction, but some other people too. It's just like people are pranking people like it's fucking Home Alone, or they're abducting people. That's what's happening now, or they're fucking because it's the horny brand. They're happening in this show, and none of them are learning how to wrestle.
Broadcast on the CW.
It should be. Well, some of the people aren't good looking enough for CW.
They just cancelled like a dozen shows, so I guess they could fit it in now.
As they should. Those shows suck. But I mean, there's some stuff that's good on this, and there's some stuff that really, even if I like the people, I'm just like, this is a thumbs down. Because I got to say, for instance, Solo Sikoa comes out and he's like, I want another shot at the North American title. And Cameron Grimes is like, okay. I'm like, God damn it. Why are we just doing this again?
Oh, I've heard this more than I've seen it, but I did decide to check it out a little bit. God, they hate Cameron Grimes now.
Yeah.
Like, Cameron Grimes gets a really negative reaction. Like, he came out, and I think they chanted, You Got Lucky.
Yeah, I think so.
Really?
Yeah, because obviously he managed to survive that triple threat match, and everyone likes Solo Sikoa and Carmelo Hayes even more than Cameron Grimes. He's become a bland babyface.
Yeah, they're victims of the whole, oh well, we're pushing you. I don't want you to be pushed.
Yeah. You won the titles, so now we don't give a shit about you anymore.
Yeah, the NXT fans are garbage.
They're a pain in the ass sometimes.
They're such a bad fan base. And this is not like overall, because obviously, well, a lot less people watch it than were previously, but still a good number, 100,000. I'm sure the majority of them are fine. But the people that actually turn up for the shows live just seem like the worst people.
It's not at all like what it used to be with Full Sail.
You mean Floridians? What? Yeah. No.
Yeah, in my experience, they're the most terrible people in the I guess you're not a native Floridian.
What do they rank compared to the Japanese fans? But you know what's also funny about this? For the second time, they did this thing where they announced a new event coming up by having Cameron Grimes on his way to the ring talk about when you fight me at the next show. Like, why is this how they're doing this? Because they did it, at NXT Spring Break-In, whatever. And I was like, wait, what? What's that? And this time he's like, yeah, well, you're going to get your shot in your house. Why are they announcing things as, okay, Cameron Grimes will just start talking when he's stepping into the ring and mention the thing. And then later on we'll go, by the way, that's also confirmed. In Your House is coming up. And it took a couple days for them to fully be like, okay, it's happening on this date. And it's, I mean, we still don't know, technically speaking, if it is going to be outside of the Capitol Wrestling Center, but I highly assume that it is. They're just sort of like, all right, Cameron Grimes is going to say that. That's twice now. Very specific.
Yeah, I guess a lot of things with NXT, it just seems to be booking by the seat of your pants type stuff. Like, again, that's probably the case with most of WWE, but especially with NXT, it kind of feels like, especially with this Cora and Natty thing, that got rushed. Because why would they, like, surely they could have just, it's only Wednesday in Your House, like early June, isn't it?
June 4th.
Yeah.
I think.
So surely they could have stretched it out for two.
Is it June 4th? Let me double check.
That makes sense to me. I think I heard that one.
That's the same day as the other thing, so that's why I'm like, oh, maybe I'm forgetting that that's a different time frame.
Okay.
But it's whatever the day is before Hell in a Cell. Yep, June 4th.
Okay. So surely they could have stretched it out for 3 more weeks if they wanted to, and given that a position on the pay-per-view card, or their special event card, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, they decided to just push it straight through, do it on this show. It's only been Natalia's only been there for 3-4 weeks, and now seemingly she's came in as a babyface legend, turned heel on Cora, had a couple of matches, and now has turned back babyface only on NXT because she's still a heel on the main roster. Right. So yeah, it's just again, trying to make sense of any of this shit is probably not worth any of our time. So.
Let's see what else we got that was on some of these shows. We got for
Raw a little bit, yeah.
In your Raw side of notes, you got some of the stuff that we kind of had seen coming. I mean, Rhea Ripley is, of course, confirmed as a member of Judgment Day, and Edge teases that there's going to be more. We haven't had anything else happen from that, but more continuing going on with that story. Street Profits are like, we want a tag title shot, but we can just very easily lose so that you beat somebody in the way of the Usos thing. See how that works down the line. Veer beat the shit out of somebody again. Ciampa beats Ali. I mean, there's not too much going on here. The only thing that's really a talking point in my mind, it seems like we're going to get Bianca Belair and Asuka and Becky Lynch in a triple threat for the pay-per-view. Yeah, I'm down for that.
I'd be down for that. Yeah, that could be fun.
Good things are good. I'm not gonna complain about that one.
They're continuing Cody and Seth.
I might complain about that one because it's getting a little long in the tooth. Bliss.
Bliss is back. Yeah, Bliss is back, and Sonya Deville's no longer a WWE official. That's kind of the biggest quote unquote news coming out of that.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't clarified what brand Sonya is on. Kind of seems like she's probably sticking around on Raw.
There's no brands.
Well, I mean, there is, but there isn't. They want to say that people are on brands, and then they want them to go back.
Oh yeah, Lacey Evans is on Raw now.
Oh yeah. See, you see, this makes no sense.
I hate the Lacey Evans shit.
I don't get it. I mean, I do get it because it's shit, and so that's kind of fits the brand. But that's but it's just so they're telling this story about how she was like the army veteran thing and all this great stuff about like the motherhood side of things and how she's battled through adversity. Then on SmackDown, she makes her big return, but the announcer said something like, please show some respect for her, which kind of comes across as a heel thing. And then she goes really over the top on the celebrations and people don't really seem to be super into it. So I just think, okay, she's turning heel. And then she comes out of Raw and then she starts talking about her abusive father. or something like that.
Well, I
or
thought they were
Deadbeat
just
Club or something like that.
I thought they were just re-airing the vignette.
Okay, so that was a previous, yeah.
I don't know if it was because it's all. I mean, look, if it's real,
this is the first time I've heard any talk about it online about the father stuff.
I don't know. Look, if it's all real stuff, obviously, it seems like it probably is.
It's probably all real.
Terrible that she went through all that stuff, and I don't want anything to be misconstrued as, you know, me crapping on that. Because hey, look, if you went through all that and you came out as good as you did, that's fucking amazing. But it's such a weird thing to do, to be like, let's talk about how this person had all this adversity, and then request that you show the proper respect.
You see, I don't think that. I think everybody's over-reading into that terminology. Like, I think it's just, hey, he's a fucking Marine. You know how, like, hey, it's tribute to the troops. Show some respect for the troops. That's the vibe I got from it.
I see it as prime Kurt Angle debut, which is you build him up as he's an Olympic hero, he's an American hero, he won the gold medal at the '96 Olympic Games, but he comes in and he's so full of himself. Like he's like the idea, like he battled through all that adversity, he achieved so much for our country, and we should, in theory, we should be big fans of him, but we're of the mindset of, oh, so you think you're better than us? That type of mentality. And that is what struck me about the whole show the proper respect line. I mean, again, you might be completely right that people are reading way too much into it. I heard that phrasing and just immediately thought, oh, fuck, she's a heel. That's just
we're like, hey, we really need to respect this person. They weren't like, whoa, what the fuck is this? They were, you know, we need to show respect to her because she's been through so much.
It's the way that it's phrased.
Proper respect.
You need to show me the proper respect. Anybody that says anything like that, my immediate gut reaction is, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, I hate it when I hear people talk about, oh, this person disrespected me. And it's like, ma'am, you're in line at McDonald's and they didn't give you the fucking, the right order for your chicken nuggets. Shut the hell up. You're going to get your nuggets. You know what I mean? Like, who the fuck are you to say that you need, if anybody, almost as a universal thing for this, almost anybody that ever mentions that they deserve respect doesn't. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
you're the type of
person is king there.
No, I mean, anybody who actively says you need to respect me more often than not is thinking that they're entitled to a higher respect than they actually are, because you earn respect. And if you wanted the Lacey Evans character to be a babyface, you did these vignettes. She's already got sympathy. And then you just have Samantha Irvin go, everybody, we want to welcome back Lacey Evans. And she comes out and she poses. And then there's nothing to it at all. She's a babyface. You want to hammer it down even more? You have a heel go and be like, oh, you know, you think that you're better than me because of that or whatever. And then, hey, I'm going to attack you or something. And then you have no problems whatsoever. But to come out and be like, I need you to clap for me the way that I think I deserve it. Oh, well, you're a fucking bitch then, you know? And then they switch it over to Monday Night Raw, and it's like, what is going on right now? You brought Aaliyah in, and then she just disappeared for WrestleMania season. You bring Xia Li in, you have her as a heel, you bring her in as a babyface. Now she's a heel and disappeared again, where it's been 2 weeks or so since she's like, by the way, I haven't been around because I don't want to protect anybody. I'm the protector and I don't want to protect anybody. And then I'm going to leave again. Raquel didn't even do anything yet. Like, she's smiling and just being like, I'm happy to be here. And what are they doing? Goddamn, sit down and think for 10 seconds and start to plan something out here.
And I'll say that, like, I know we've talked a lot about changing things up, but I think the problem is they're doing too much too drastically, where it's just like, yeah, and I know that you saw this guy on SmackDown, but now he's here and he's Butch. It's like they're just going, no, we're a fictional world and we've decided that we're going to change everything at the drop of a hat and you have to accept it. If they kind of pull the reins back a bit, and
they did, he's not going to be on.
Damn it, Tony.
Come on, you set me up for that.
I did. Okay. If they do that, though, and they do make it better to understand these changes, maybe people wouldn't feel as, well, what the fuck is going on here? Everything's been so drastic, and the ratings aren't even improving. Nothing's improved. All they've done is panic mode everything since like SummerSlam, and nothing has improved.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's see. Anything else happen on here? Let's talk about Dynamite.
Yeah, let's talk about Dynamite.
Let's talk about fucking Darby Allin. He has no regard for his body.
Just as a general thing before we get into any sort of specifics, I thought, and because I wasn't on last week's Hot Tag, so I didn't have a chance to talk about this. I thought last week's Dynamite was the worst of the year by a considerable margin. I thought that whole last half an hour in particular, but probably the whole last hour in general, was just not good.
So that's the thing with Sheeta and Deeb cutting the promo and everything. So that week was
it was Deeb and Rose was terrible.
Yes.
The main event was like crickets in the crowd. It was just not great. That whole fucking Varsity Blondes House of Black thing is like that's probably the worst AEW segment I've seen since that whole Dark Order thing. It was previously the Satnam Singh debut, but that's been overtaken by that segment. That is, like, to me, that, again, I don't know, talk about last week rather than this week's one, but for me, that's pretty much Varsity Blondes dead in the water, to me. Like, I could not give a fuck about either of those two now at this point. But this week, huge improvement. I thought this was one of the best ones of the year so far, because every single thing had a point to it, and it helped build up for Double or Nothing. You got more progression of the tournament. All the matches were good. Yeah, there really was very little to criticize about this episode from my perspective. But yeah, Darby Allin and Jeff Hardy have absolutely no caution or ability to protect them or willingness to protect themselves. That was a crazy bump for a fucking first round match of a tournament that the guy who did the bump isn't even going to win.
I know. What the fuck are we doing?
Well, at the end of the day, especially with Darby Allin, I guess he just assumes that he can't get injured, or like he won't get injured because that's probably one of the craziest things I've seen him do, but he's done loads of crazy things and he seemingly never takes time off or doesn't get seriously injured at any point in time. That doesn't mean he won't do. But then again, Jeff Hardy's made an entire career out of this, and the only time he's been seriously injured for a long time is when he fell off a dirt bike.
You know what's crazy is Jeff. I actively think Jeff makes it worse for himself when he does things like he wears the shirt. And I don't know why, because Jeff looks phenomenal. Jeff looks like how Jeff has always looked. I don't know why he covers himself up from head to toe, makes it seem like he's more out of shape than he is. Because Jeff could easily be a main eventer right now.
I wouldn't say that.
It can't be a long run.
Well, it can't be any run. Like, he can't wrestle a singles match anymore to a high standard. We saw that with the Bobby Fish match the previous week as well. Another reason why that show wasn't as great as I hoped it would be. It's just that he doesn't have the stamina to go one-on-one with people, which is why I don't think the match with Adam Cole will be very long or as good as the match that Cole had with Dax Harwood on this show, which was an excellent opening match.
Yeah, it was really good.
But
as expected.
But Hardy can do this type of match where you've got plunder all over the place and it's just a bunch of spots. This is perfect for Jeff Hardy. Obviously, it's not perfect for his long-term ability to walk, but then again, he doesn't seem to care about that. So why should I? So that's the kind of attitude I take towards it. But at the end of the day, the result did make sense, because the likelihood is that you got Jeff Hardy and Adam Cole. That leads to a natural progression towards the Young Bucks versus the Hardys. So it makes logical sense that Hardy won this match. Darby Allin is pretty much a protected entity at this point. He could lose plenty of matches and still just come back with a couple of wins and he'll be totally fine. So I don't see an issue with that.
So while we're talking about Jeff Hardy, I do want to bring up, he was on AEW Unrestricted. And one of my favorite things maybe ever in an interview with anyone, they asked him, who would you like to have a triangle ladder match with in AEW? And immediately he says, Top Flight. And then he goes, no, they're too young. They have too much of a long career ahead of them. No. And I just thought, like, oh, what a nice guy. Just sitting there like, I've ruined my life. Not these kids. Let's not have these kids ruin their lives.
But yeah, so that match was bonkers, but it was still a lot of fun. Storm and Hater, again, there's been a bit of talk about like the slightly muted crowd reaction, but it was still a very good match. I think it was really hard hitting, so that was great. Howard and Cole, as we've spoken about, or just briefly did, that was such an excellent match.
Seems like we're going to get Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy against Starks and Hobbs against Keith Lee and Swerve. Seems like they're going in that direction.
Yeah. It's an odd triple threat tag for the pay-per-view, but I still think it makes sense to do that. And there was also a tease towards the furthering along of Christian turning on Jungle Boy.
Long tease.
Yeah, well, they slow build, and I can appreciate that. No,
I just meant like the spot on Wednesday was it really looked like he was going to turn.
Yeah, and that followed
Jericho Appreciation Society seems like they're heading into a match, maybe Blood and Guts, maybe something else, Stampede or whatever.
Yeah. So Double or Nothing immediately suggests Stadium Stampede with so it would be Moxley, Danielson,
Blackpool Combat Club. It's so hard to say sometimes, but not with Will. Oh my God, I can't talk. Wheeler Yuta. Holy shit.
Yeah, because he'll be with Best of Super Juniors.
I can't even blame this on the fucking Invisalign that I got going on. I'm just words don't work. But it seems like it's Moxley and Bryan teaming up with Santana and Ortiz and Kingston against the 5 members of Jericho Appreciation Society, which can be kind of fun.
So, yeah, my assumption is that it'll be Stadium Stampede, even though that's a sports entertainment match. I think to make it work, because I just don't think they'll do Blood and Guts on a pay-per-view because of the rigmarole that it took to get the first Blood and Guts together. Because I think the way that Khan discussed it is like they had to build basically an entire show around Blood and Guts because of the way the cage is built.
Yeah,
and I don't think they'd be able to do that, especially on a one-ring event. So if every other match is in a one ring, they wouldn't be able to do it for this one. They'd have to completely format the entire arena to accommodate 2 rings. So again, it's not impossible, but I just don't think it will happen on that show. They'll make that a TV special.
Yeah, then you got it seems like we're going in a direction of more of the Jay Lethal, Samoa Joe, possibly the title's going to be on the line for that one, and maybe that means that Joe doesn't continue on with the tournament, ends up losing that. I mean,
what do you think the Joker is?
The Joker is something that's really interesting. I have no idea who that might be.
Could be anyone. It literally, I'm saying, look, obviously it couldn't be anyone. It couldn't be the 7 guys that are also in the tournament, so that's one thing. Or any of the guys, or likely any of the guys that qualified.
Be a Swerve.
Yes, Swerve.
No, I'm saying it would be a Swerve, not that Swerve Strickland. Like if they were just like, the Joker is Kyle O'Reilly.
They did make it clear that it's not
Lethal Singh. Yeah. I mean, again, the lists are endless. It could be Miro, it could be Claudio, it could be Gargano, it could be someone from New Japan Pro Wrestling, it could be Jay White, it could be like the guys are coming over. Like New Japan is doing a show in DC this weekend. So the guys are in the US, so that could be some signal towards it. But I'm personally leaning towards Miro. I think that makes the most sense. But it could.
It's a good way to bring him back.
Yeah, but it could be Gargano. If it's Gargano, I think Gargano wins it.
I don't think it's Gargano.
I think it's more Cesaro.
You don't think Gargano? Yeah, you don't think Gargano Cole in Double or Nothing? Would be a kind of a big deal.
You know what though? NXT 2.0 is really AEW if they do that. Like if it's just Gargano and Cole.
I mean, the likelihood is so. What's the other quarterfinal? The other quarterfinal is Kyle O'Reilly versus Phoenix. So the likelihood is neither one of those is going to go to the final.
Yeah, Cole's going to beat Phoenix if that's is that how the bracket is? I think that's how the bracket is.
Well, no, it's Cole's facing Hardy.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and so you'd imagine that the Joker is the guy because they wouldn't have. Because I imagine if they are going to continue Joe and Lethal, that they wouldn't have Joe beat the Joker coming in. So the likelihood is the final Double or Nothing is the Joker against Adam Cole.
Most likely.
So you want someone who's a babyface, and Miro doesn't really fit the bill for that.
That's why I think it's Cesaro.
But I think that's why. So the way that they built it, I don't think it's a babyface, because it's Lethal and Thing and this one going out.
I think there's, again, it might be a case of, in the same way that you think about the Lacey Evans thing, I think it's a case of people have misinterpreted the promo. I think basically Duck just said that it's not Lethal and it's not Satnam Singh. Well, of course they know it's not one of them, because otherwise they would know it's one of them.
What about Bandito?
But it could be someone Ring of Honor related. I don't think
a Ring of Honor guy. Yeah,
I don't think it'd be Gresham. It wouldn't make sense to be Gresham against Joe. I think it needs to be someone who would get a huge reaction, because realistically it needs to be someone who is worthy of being a Joker and getting a bye essentially into this tournament. And I think in that sense, Miro makes sense because he has a reputation in AEW. He's one of their best ever TNT champions, so it would make sense that he gets a bye into this. But for Gargano and Cesaro, it could work. So. But yeah, the best thing about it is that we don't know, and I'm super excited about it. That's kind of where I stand with that at the moment. But we haven't even spoken about, again, there was other stuff on the show. I don't think anything that needs to go into too much detail apart from one of the best segments of the year, which is that MJF Wardlow contract signing. Oh my God, that was so good. The fucking Dark Side of the Ring commercial.
Loved the parody of that. That was really funny.
The best part, I mean, all of it was great, but the best part of it for me was Jericho stopping halfway through. It says, MJF, this is for MJF. I don't do this for this asshole. Wait, how much is he paying? Okay, let's continue.
Yeah, after all we've been through, I don't want to narrate for this guy.
It's such good continuity.
Mm-hmm.
That even though they're both heels, he still hates MJF. But,
But he's enough of a heel to be like, how much money am I getting? Okay.
Right, yeah, that was really well done.
Yeah, that was excellent.
Agreeing with some of the stuff that I've been seeing online where people are like, look, MJF needs a different feud where he isn't just like, you have to go through a series of trials to get to me. And it's getting a little repetitive. But, I mean, Wardlow is so fucking over.
I think the idea is it's working.
Mm-hmm.
It's all a case he should mix it up a little bit more. But I think this is if this is me, this is how I would do it. And again, we'll talk more when we get to Double or Nothing predictions as well. But I like the fact that they are bringing up the Cody thing, because it makes sense, especially with all this stuff that MJF is openly talking about wanting to leave and going to WWE in 2024. So it makes sense that he'd do something similar to what he's done with Cody in that regard, and put Wardlow in a cage, because Wardlow lost the cage match against Cody as well. So it makes sense with that in that sense. And you've got the stipulation that if Wardlow loses, he can never sign an AEW contract, which means that it's very likely that Wardlow will win the match. But then there's also the little caveat of, well, Tony owns Ring of Honor, so he could just make him a Ring of Honor contracted guy. But so I think there's still a bit of wiggle room there. But the way I would play it is that you'd have Wardlow win the match. And this is the straw that breaks the camel's back with MJF, because you could have him cut a huge promo afterwards talking about how he's been screwed by the system, and you could lean into the whole thing that this is why I don't want to stay with the company, this is why I'm going to be out of here in 2024. But talk about how he wants the title shot, he wants to be AEW World Champion. And then Tony Khan comes out Tony Khan or someone just comes out and says, listen, MJF, this year you lost to CM Punk at
Revolution.
Revolution. You just lost to Wardlow. Twice this year you've lost to Captain Sean Dean. You don't deserve to be challenging the AEW. You don't win You don't win it. Yeah, you don't win enough. And this essentially sets that off an emotion of okay, for the next 6 months, no losses, fairly regular matches, just keep building up Rev to the point where he is top of the rankings and absolutely undeniable. And that's when you have him, whoever's a champion, that's when he wins the title. That's how I would do it. This is the last loss that I think we're going to see MJF have this year, in my opinion. That's the way that I think they should go about it. But yeah, this segment was great. You had the 10 thing with Sean Spears.
Yeah, that was funny.
That was so fun. You had Mark Sterling take the thing as well. Oh yeah, that's other things I was talking about. I was talking about the fact it was Danhausen's debut and had Tony Nese squash him in 2 seconds, pretty much.
smartest fucking thing you could do.
Absolutely. And then you got the Hook and Danhausen uniting. They're going to face Sterling and Tony Nese at the pay-per-view in the buy-in match. That's going to be fun. Had the whole Punk and Hangman stuff with Punk beating John Silver, and Punk's now a heel in Long Island because MJF's the big hero in Long Island. And so, and they did the whole like face-to-face confrontation, and Punk was being more heelish, and Hangman gave him the middle finger to the face. Oh, this show was just so good.
It does feel like for no reason at all that this rivalry has gone 0 to 100. Like the one area where it feels like you should be getting Nice Guy Punk, which he has mostly been, and you should be getting Nice Guy Hangman. They're just like, I fucking hate this guy. Fuck this guy. It's very strange. But
I think it was. They could have done a better job explaining it, but I think that it would work if they took the perspective of Paige is annoyed because essentially the entire time he's been champion, people have just been talking about CM Punk because CM Punk's back in wrestling, and so he's taken up a lot of spotlight. And and essentially you could tell the story that Paige wants to essentially get the recognition that he feels is owed by being the world champion, and so he's taking an extra aggressive stance towards Punk because he feels a bit, I don't say intimidated by him, but he feels like, well, I'm the champion, so why is everyone talking about this guy? Why is this guy still the big deal? I'm the top guy in this company. So again, it's part of that whole angsty millennial cowboy.
But you know what? Like, they have enough there that they could have done it, because they could have said, you're all talking about Brian, I beat him. You're all talking about Cole, I beat him. He's the only one left, and now I'm going to beat him.
Yeah, I think that will be like the go home promo for it, just to set it up a little bit more. But I do understand where you're coming from, the more aggressive thing. I just think that the exchanges have been like very gripping TV, so I'm kind of okay to look beyond it. But yeah, essentially,
good show.
General consensus, double thumbs up show. Yeah,
and the opening match was a banger with Cole and Harwood, and Harwood's really becoming one of the best singles wrestlers on top of being a great tag team wrestler.
Yup. I haven't said anything in a while.
No, that's fine. I like to come on every now and again and just like sing praises at AEW. So it's just like
I agree. They deserve it too. I agree about everything except for the Danhausen stuff. It's not for me. But
I know.
Well, that's why it was perfect that they squashed them.
Yeah, that's true.
It was good. It was good for Tony Nese. Like, it would have been. I would agree that it would probably go a bit too far if they had him beat Tony Nese.
I will admit though, one thing upset me, and it was during the Wardlow segment, and I'm like, "Where's Nese? Where's Jade? Where are all of Mark Sterling's clients? They're just gonna let this man get hurt and get put through a table for no good reason."
I can kind of understand the Jade one because Jade clearly has no respect for Mark Sterling.
Yeah.
And right. But Tony Nese probably made more sense. But maybe Nese was off on the showers because he just had his match. So like,
I guess you could say that though.
Yeah, but yeah, I was quite happy to see him get put through the table. And then him on Twitter afterwards as well, just talking about how he was he saying like was he tweeting at SRS as well, saying like, "Can you report that I'm hurt?" or something along those lines?
Yeah. They have a lot of good fun with it. And actually, I want Sterling to be the reason that Cardona eventually ends up back in AEW, but I guess we'll see it when we get there.
He's gone from someone that I thought was just like there with the whole MJF and Moxley feud to being one of the like a really fun character.
Well, we got another episode of TV tonight with SmackDown. We got another episode with Level Up. Then we got another episode with Rampage. And who knows if there's going to be any talking points that are coming out of some of those things that we will feel like talking about next week. But that's pretty much the hot tags that we've got right now. It's 5:20 right now. I don't know when you're going to be listening to this, but hopefully you got yourself a good dinner, and hopefully you picked up some Manscaped stuff, and hopefully you enjoyed this episode. If you did, hit that like button, leave a comment, and follow everything else that we got going on for Smark Moment on both the website and on the Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and everything else that we got. That's here. It's all at Smark Moment. Check out fanboysanonymous.com and everything that is happening over on the geek culture spectrum on the Blue Brand. Follow me at Tony Mango. Follow Rob at Dude Felice.
Yep, follow me everywhere at Dude Felice. I just saw a bit of a preview of the dudefelice.com, and it's not minimalist, I'll say that. Very bright. But yeah, follow me everywhere. Follow me on Twitch. I really want to grow that. And I will toss you over to Callum.
Yep, so you can follow me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. Check out all the stuff that's going out on the smarkmoment.com websites. Of course, there's the Power Rankings, which is my sole week-to-week contribution. But then I also contributed to this week's Triple Threat, and there's the Fantasy League, which will be regularly updated on a week-to-week basis. So follow that as long to see who's coming out on top. After like a couple of I started inputting some of the scores recently. So in a very, very early part of it, Tony is winning. But then again, I haven't put in any penalties. But yeah,
I'll win in the
penalties will
end.
come at the end. Yeah,
Roman Reigns.
Roman
Reigns.
If he's not appearing, you might get a big penalty about that, wouldn't you?
That is
also,
true.
You don't get any extra points for title defenses either. You only get the extra points for title wins.
What are you doing? I've been
it's good to be the king. Nice. But yeah, keep following that along. That's been going on all year up until WrestleMania. So yeah, just keep tracking it. I'll be updating it, as I say, every single week. So see how many people will get released, because Rob's the only one that hasn't felt that yet. But to be fair, he's got Roman, who might miss a load of weeks, and he's also got you've got Brock as well, I think. So he'll miss a load of weeks, and you've got Big E, and you've got John Cena. So we'll see how that shakes out at the end of the year.
While we're recording this, we got a comment, shout out to Ricky Sanders, one of the people who said, you got yourself a new subscriber after checking out the WWE and ROH mock draft that we had done.
They're liking the draft, Tony.
All the more reason for me to be like, yeah, when you guys tell me these things, and then I go, okay, cool. Well, then we'll keep doing the things you guys like. That's why I always say, leave a comment. We have so many. I'm mad. I thought of something the other day when I was watching something. I forget what it was, too, on top of that. But I wrote down a note to myself, new mock draft idea, and I didn't fucking write down what it was, and I forgot about it by that thing. It was some kind of like, okay, this is another theme that we could do another mock draft for, not in the sense of like, oh, WCW, but something like the under 30 type thing, and I can't remember what the hell it was. So even if it's something that's off the wall crazy, send in your ideas, because some of these are way fun. We have to be like, okay, we would do everything, and it's only we can draft people that have their name starts with an F. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many different ways that we could go about doing that. So if you have random ass suggestions, send them our way. I mean, Ricky here says he'd love to see ones for NWA, TNA, WCW, New Japan, AAA, etc.
Well, we've done a TNA one, just on the behind the paywall.
Oh my god, yeah, put that up there, Tony.
You did a TNA one? I don't even remember doing that one.
Yeah, we did that on Patreon. That was it must have been a year plus ago. But we do have a Impact Wrestling all-time roster fantasy draft that's on the Patreon. We also have one for NXT that's on the Patreon as well. So
yeah, put that TNA one up on the main roster. On the main page.
Good, call it up.
Yeah,
I don't even remember doing that.
We can call it up. Yeah, we've done that every now and again, haven't we?
WCW one we should definitely do at the very least, just to round out that one. But
yeah, I've got that in the I've got that in the chamber. I've got a whole Attitude Era one actually.
Maybe that's what we'll do next week, because we actually do next
week. It's a blank week next week, so
we'll do a draft.
Maybe we'll do another draft. Even though we've been doing quite a bit of these, we've been enjoying them. You've been enjoying them, so yeah, maybe we'll just go ahead and just fucking do another one of those. I don't know. But any suggestions that you have, always feel free to voice them, because I read all the comments, so it's not like I'm ever going to just be like, oh, well, you know, I didn't see it. I mean, I might not see it in a particular time frame or something, but that's we always take that into consideration, so keep that in mind. And whatever it is that we see you next, hopefully you enjoy that as much, if not more, than what you enjoyed this edition, this 2-hour plus edition of the Hot Tags. And we will see you with whatever that video is that you click on. Until then, though, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we are being counted out.